Hey everybody, it's Abishur Prakash, aka Mr. Geopolitics. In today's episode of Predictable versus Unpredictable, we'll be looking at Macron's idea of deploying French nuclear weapons throughout Europe and what this could mean for the future of European defense. The French president Emmanuel Macron has greenlighted the idea of pushing French nuclear weapons throughout the European Union. France is the only nuclear power in the EU, and this has been on the table for some time now. This has been predictable because France has put the spotlight on such an idea several times in the past. When Donald Trump was running for re-election in the 2024 US presidential race, he called and proposed that the US could exit NATO. This was met with huge fears in Europe that Europe would have to take control of its defense destiny, in large part by procuring and securing its own nuclear umbrella. Now, this is exactly where the situation is moving in. On top of this, after the Trump-Zelensky blowout, Europe was once again rattled and began to actually switch gears. The European project Rearm Europe, which earmarks $850 billion to redesign European defense security, or Germany literally amending its constitution to change its debt brake limit in part to bolster defense spending. These are real moves. This is not optics. This is not talk. These are real moves for Europe to move away from reliance on America for defense. So France is calling for this at a moment when Europe wants to sever its reliance and dependency on America for security, where Europe doesn't necessarily want to be beholden to America when it comes to the most critical security arrangements, be it nuclear weapons, be it intelligence, be it simple war readiness, which Europe is right now going to America and dependent on America for. So this was the predictable. Now comes the unpredictable. The biggest gray area is what happens to America's nuclear weapons in Europe if France steps in and nations in Europe begin asking France for French nuclear weapons. For example, Germany hosts several American nuclear weapons. The new German chancellor has proposed that French and British nuclear weapons could shield Germany. So if Germany asks France for nuclear protection, will this mean that America pulls its nuclear weapons out, or that now some European states have a double nuclear umbrella? And this points to a bigger question, which is, will America be comfortable as the winds begin to change? America, under Trump, has called for Europe to pay up when it comes to NATO, to handle defense and security on its own. This so far, however, has been just comments, just remarks. There has been some deals, some agreements, but for the most part, the status quo of Europe's reliance on America has not permanently changed. Now, however, after the Trump-Zelensky blowout, and now added to this, what Macron is proposing, Europe may move in this direction. The ball is moving towards Europe building a security apparatus that is America free. And will America be comfortable with this if now this is exactly what Europe is doing? It's one thing for this to be proposed or written on the board as a concept. It's another thing if steps are actually being taken to remove America from the most important and strategic parts of Europe's security landscape. And if Trump is not comfortable with this, then what will he do, considering if he starts to walk back his calls for Europe to bolster its defense spending, that it fundamentally changes America first and America's ideas of less intervention in the world. Added to this are questions of whether the rest of Europe will be comfortable with France calling the shots. Macron has made it clear two things. First, France will not be paying for the security needs of other nations. And second, that France will remain in control of its nuclear weapons, meaning the final say around how nuclear weapons are used, if that day comes, will remain with the French government. This points to France deploying its nuclear weapons in a way that gives it tremendous power over the future of European security. This is a new era for France's geopolitical footprint. In the process, Paris could begin defining everything from who is Europe's chief adversary, what does Europe's readiness look like, how should Europe invest, deploy, design. If France is in the commanding position, will the rest of Europe be comfortable with this? Nuclear weapons could give France a new kind of power, and this could begin to eat into the comfort of other nations, particularly Germany and Italy, and outside of the EU, the United Kingdom, if France begins to behave in ways that are very different to the way that France has been behaving in the past, when it's been about uniformity, when it's been about getting everybody on the same page and moving in the same direction as one single European Union. So the new French power could begin to put the rest of Europe in a very uncomfortable position. And this leads to the third gray area, which is, why will other European nations turn to France if America is pulling away? Will Europe now begin the process of pursuing its own nuclear arsenal, states, individual European states pursuing their own nuclear arsenal, whether it's Germany, whether it's Italy, whether it's Spain, whether it's parts of Eastern Europe? These nations may realize or feel the point has come where if the French are replacing the American nuclear umbrella in Europe, then they themselves should build their own nuclear umbrella, their own sovereign nuclear umbrella. And instead of depending on America or France or anybody else, that they should procure or develop their own nuclear weapons. So is the world entering a phase where nuclear weapons will be sold and bought? And if this is what some European nations want, which is their own sovereign nuclear arsenal, then what will this mean for the future of nuclear non-proliferation? I hope you resonated with this episode of Predictable versus Unpredictable. Leave your comments below and talk soon.